And also, maybe there'll be people who watch online. So I definitely wish to say a warm hello and welcome to them as well. So I don't know your abilities. Are you beginners? Are you intermediate? Where are you guys at? Just in a word, one word. A little bit of
I'd
knowledge.
say I'm leaning more towards intermediate.
Oh, sweet. Awesome. Who's totally fresh? Okay, cool. Because brilliant. So I'm going to just teach it then at an intermediate level. I'm going to assume some knowledge, therefore. And if you don't have that knowledge that I'm making assumptions over, then you're very warmly welcome to ask questions. So you're not just a passenger to strap yourself in and let's go for the ride. I want you to feel that you can ask questions, and it's good to I'll give plenty of opportunity. I'll either ask you directly or I'll pause. That's usually the best time to jump on in. Also, I'm going to repeat things several times throughout the course of the 4 weeks, if you can join us for all 4. And hopefully by the end, we'll get a good understanding. And then based on that understanding, we can really personalize the 4 truths for ourselves and take that into our reflections, meditations, and so forth. But without knowledge, it's kind of like meditating is kind of like the Kadampas use the analogy of like trying to rock climb without hands. Impossible, right? So we take into our meditation what we study, we reflect on what we study, we meditate on what we study, we integrate it, But the first thing does involve that study or listening. Okay. So yeah, not everyone's muted at the moment, but feel free to mute yourself if you like, and then just simply unmute or raise a hand or something if you'd like to share. It's easier than using the chat. The chat can be a bit distracting. Okay, here we go. How wonderful. We're very, very, very fortunate. So let us take that opportunity. And so you guys are familiar with Shakyamuni Buddha. I wasn't sure if you guys were all familiar. So I've got a picture here otherwise, but it seems you guys are all good to go. So we'll just start off with some prayers, and then we can get into the 4 truths. So just take a moment. Physically, we're here. And just make sure mentally we've caught up with where our body's at right now. We can just concentrate on our breathing for a moment, just to drop into that being centered. Even our breathing, we can think like the body suffers, that every breath is for the welfare of sentient beings. And so us being here today to understand and integrate the 4 truths is for the welfare of all sentient beings. To free them from oceans of samsaric suffering and bring to liberation, enlightenment. And so we can imagine we're in the presence of Guru Shakyamuni Buddha, seated in front of us at the level of our forehead, about 2 meters away. We can also imagine all sentient beings surrounding us, in human aspect, but experiencing the torment of their individual sufferings. And there's no way we can help them unless we ourselves become liberated, become Sangha Arya beings, having true paths, true cessations, the Dharma jewel. Buddha jewel. And to even come close to any of that necessitates that we know our own true suffering. And so just take a moment to reflect on all the different types of sufferings that we would have experienced in our beginningless lives in the lower realms, and then even in the upper realms. Let's just take that moment. Whilst we're under the control of true origins, karma and afflictions, you to circle endlessly in all 6 realms of existence, experiencing far greater, unimaginable sufferings than right now in this precious human rebirth. And so generate a sense of renunciation that is focused, directed, determined to become free from samsara and all its suffering and all its manifest forms, its subtle forms. To emerge from cyclic existence and attain the liberated state. But to do it alone is far from okay. As we perceive all sentient beings around us experiencing their various torments and anguish, pains, sufferings, fears, naturally compassion arises. May they be free of suffering and its causes. Strengthen the great compassion by taking personal responsibility to free them. Thinking I myself alone will make it happen. For the welfare of all sentient beings, I will attain Buddhahood and bring them to such a state. All of this is not just wishful thinking. It is made possible because things are empty of inherent existence. Because they are a dependent arising. We can fully develop a Buddha nature. To attain the state of Sangye, state of a Buddha, with perfect abandonments, the supreme true cessation, and fully develop our wisdom, our love, and our ability to help all sentient beings. This I, enlightenment, and the transmigratory beings we seek to benefit are all completely empty. How do they exist? Of course they exist. So how do they exist? By being merely labeled by the mind in dependence on their base, 5 aggregates, body, speech, and mind, or having accomplished the state of perfect abandonments, perfect realizations. And so feel very fortunate, very blessed to come under the protection of the Guru, Triple Gem, Guru Shakyamuni Buddha, one with all Buddha Dhamma Sangha. And we can go for refuge, having generated the 3 principal aspects in our mind. And we can recite together 3 times if you like. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, the Supreme Assembly. By my merits of listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. Okay, so feel a sense of refuge in our minds, a total reliance. Just trying to get the Zoom window down so I can see everybody. Okay. So hopefully everything seemed okay there, and it wasn't with too many makes sense to you. So in looking at the 4 weeks, basically, like, this is the entire framework for all the Buddhist teachings. And so it's quite hard to condense down into just 4 1.5 hour sessions. So we're going to just and this week needs to be more of like, let's draw on the same page, our understanding. And so just presenting a little bit of, okay, so we're looking at the 4 truths, and I just want to make sure I can see you by moving this down. There we go. Okay, so the 4 truths is like the entire Buddhist framework. So it's going to, cover quite a lot. And this week I just thought to focus on a little bit of the knowledge, the scaffolding we need to support our understanding. And then in the subsequent weeks, take, for instance, true suffering and spend a little bit more time on that, then true origins, and then in the last week, the 2 true paths, true cessations, and look at them together so that we can try to touch into one particular truth and try to live with it for about, a week with full awareness in our day-to-day life, and try to, embody the meaning of what we're trying to get, the wish we're trying to develop from, concentrating on true suffering and so forth, the wish to be free of it, for instance, true origins, the wish to abandon it, and so forth. So one thing we do share in common with all beings is, this innate wish for happiness. And, perhaps it's an expression of our Buddha nature. We have this yearning, sort of, lasting permanent happiness. And at the moment, we don't find that in cyclic existence. Anything that we experience as far as happiness goes is totally unstable. And so perhaps it's also an expression of this Buddha nature that, when we experience this temporary happiness of samsara, that we find ourselves dissatisfied with it and, look for more. And it's so, look for some sort of lasting, stable, enduring happiness that doesn't leave us dissatisfied or increases our afflictions, our craving, our grasping, embedding us further in cyclic existence. And so whatever our attachment is, even if we're at a nice restaurant with family and friends and the meals arrive, and we sort of look at what everyone else has got on their plate, and if we've ordered the same dish as somebody else, we sort of check, what have they got? Is theirs better than mine? Do they get more? I think it's not just me that does that. If it is, I'm so shameful. But I think we tend to sort of have a look, and we don't maybe catch ourselves what we're doing, but I think the mind is always sort of looking out. Is mine okay? Did I get enough? Did they get better? Did I miss out? Or like, it's so random, this mind of ours, and this grasping and clinging and so forth. So whether it be a delicious meal or, other sensory pleasures, other, so-called contaminated happiness that we get, in whatever form that takes, last, it doesn't increase. If it was the meal, with each mouthful, it's not like the happiness grows. It's not like it gets better and better. There comes a point, in fact, where if we continue to overindulge in one of these contaminated happiness, we're going to actually see that, like a seesaw, it's actually gone from being something that we see as pleasurable to something that's, too much. Already, I can remember one time traveling through, I think it was Egypt, Israel, Jordan. By the time I finished through Jordan and got to Israel, my God, my throat would like seize up just at the idea of more pita bread. It was just way too much. So it's kind of like we can enjoy it initially and it's so delicious, whatever, but the more we do these things that we find pleasure in, there comes a point where it's just too much, like the seesaw tips, and the happiness we once experienced now becomes so much suffering. If we're at the restaurant and we've, it's all you can eat, never go to those, by the way. It's like such a trap for people like us with attachment. But how long before we're wishing we had the elastic pants on, or subtly might just, switch the buckle to the next hole, that the suffering sets in, it reveals itself. And, it's just proving that this happiness just doesn't increase. It's not actually, it is happiness, it's not suffering, but it's contaminated happiness. It's suffering in its nature. It's a true suffering, but it's not suffering. So that'll make sense, but it is the happiness. We do enjoy it, right? But what we need to do is make sure we don't generate attachment to it, because that's where the problem is. We need to have enjoyments in our human life. We need that sort of thing. But the difficult part is when the attachment wants to latch on and never let go, or try to exaggerate its qualities, and this craving and attachment is what gets us into trouble and further embeds us into cyclic existence. And the more we get embedded into cyclic existence, the more we sell off liberation and enlightenment. So we have to be quite careful. And Shantideva, so precious, Shantideva, Bodhisattva's way of life, he talks about, how confused we are about what are the causes of our happiness and what are the causes of our suffering. And, although we want to be free of misery, we want to be free of all of that, what do? We run towards it. Okay, because we're confused causes of what actually brings me happiness. And although we want to have happiness, we ignorantly destroy it as if it wasn't, like an enemy. So it's kind of like the imagery that comes to mind is kind of like, the fish on a baited hook. We're lured by these attachments only to get like hooked further into suffering, or like the moth to the flame, or the deer to the headlights, all of these sorts of things. The more we chase after our attachments, the more we're going to come undone. And so obviously it's not just our attachment, but on the basis of, self-grasping, misperceiving how we actually exist, misperceiving all phenomena as to how they exist. We superimpose, we exaggerate qualities that aren't even there, and then we go after them with attachment. And if our attachment is thwarted, we go to anger, and the higher our attachment, the higher our anger when we don't get what we want. It's just a crazy mess, and it's all inner. So, but we see everything as outer, as if this person will bring me happiness, this love of my life, that I'm forever going to be with. And it's so funny, like, it's not funny, but it is kind of funny. Well, I'm laughing. When we get married on our wedding day, we think, oh my gosh, we are going to be the ones that it's always going to last. We'll always be, in love and cherish each other, and we won't be the statistic. But how many, marriages are ending in divorce? I think it's more than half, right? In the States, it's definitely more than half. And in Australia, I'm not sure how many it is, but it's like, it's pretty much getting up there. So yeah, but we never possibly think that we could be the ones that end in divorce. So whatever we're chasing, we always chase outside, and this is where we now have to turn inwards and become that inner being, that Buddhist that looks at our own causes of suffering, causes of happiness, all being internal, because the result is internal. Happiness is internal, suffering internal. So the result is internal. The cause can only be concordant with that. It can only be an internal cause. And so nothing external is going to actually bring us happiness. And sadly, we can't blame externally for our unhappiness. That's the bit I don't like. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, it's easier to blame, isn't it, than look and think that we created our own suffering. So, with this precious human rebirth that we've got, we know how long it's going to last. We don't know if there's going to be a subsequent one. Okay. So now is the time to make ourselves different from the animals, right? We don't like suffering, that's manifest. They don't like suffering, that's manifest. We already have the wish to be free of it. They already have the wish to be free of it. We're no different. So now's the time to make ourselves different, to try to strive to get succession of precious human rebirths so that we can continue to engage the precious Holy Buddha Dharma and make traction with actually coming to realize the Four Noble Truths. This is how we get to liberation and enlightenment, by seeing the truth. And so this is what we're endeavoring to do throughout these 4 weeks, to come closer and closer to the truth. So, 4 truths of an Arya. Arya being is like a superior being. It's someone who, from the path of seeing onwards, they've necessarily non-conceptually realized emptiness of inherent existence from the Prasangika point of view, the consequence point of view, which I'll mainly present from. So they've necessarily realized the truth of reality. And so that's what an Arya being is, a noble being, a superior being, different translations for the same thing. This is our Sangha jewel, yeah? Who have these true paths and true cessations in their continuum. True cessations being an abandonment of a portion of afflictions, or entirely abandon all afflictions and attain nirvana. More than that, they may have abandoned not only afflictive obscurations, but knowledge obscurations, and attained the state of a Buddha. So with the Four Noble Truths, then we're basically getting to, kind of getting in touch with our situation and going, help. I want to be free of this suffering. Help me, help. Why do I suffer? Classic question that everyone asks, why do I suffer? Well, the Buddha's got the answer for that, and he's taught us the exact reasons why we suffer. Can I ever be free of it? And if so, how? So these are the questions we're going to endeavor to answer. Okay, help. Why do I suffer? Can I ever be free? And how? This is the 4 truths in their essence, in just like simple language. And the more we understand the 2 truths, conventional truths, ultimate truths, the more we understand how all phenomena are divided into these 2 truths, then when we understand how things exist conventionally, our normal everyday engagement with the world, how I exist, my happiness, causes and conditions, my suffering, calm and results. When we understand afflictions, refuge, when we understand true suffering, true origins, true paths, these are all conventional truths. Bodhicitta, concentration, ethics, basically anything that's not emptiness. Okay, so when we understand the 2 truths, the conventional truths, how things exist at a conventional level, and when we understand the ultimate truth, that things actually do not exist in the way they appear to like conventional truths are truths for a concealer, for ignorance, for our ignorance grasping at inherent existence. Things do appear true as if they exist inherently. They don't. Certainly appearances, but they're true for ignorance. And we can come to see this as in actuality when we realize ultimate truths. So when we realize emptiness, when we realize the way things actually exist, their mode of abidance, their mode of existence is lacking inherent existence. And when we are in that Arya's meditative equipoise on the path of seeing, for instance, that uninterrupted path, we're realizing non-conceptually emptiness. And emptiness exists in the way it appears. It is true. It exists in the way it appears. It appears to be inherent existence, and it exists lacking inherent existence. It appears to be, I don't know if I misspoke then, it appears to be lacking inherent existence, and it does exist as lacking inherent existence. So this is true. These two modes, the mode of appearance and the mode of abidance, these two are concordant. But when we look around at, our computers, our phones, other people, ourselves, how we appear to be inherently existent, and we are not. Okay, so the more we understand the two truths of how phenomena exist, the more we're going to be able to ascertain through the four truths how we enter into cyclic existence from true origins causing true suffering, and how we can be free of cyclic existence, true paths bringing about true solutions. We can't really just study these things independently. We have to actually try to encompass the entire Buddha Dharma, conventional truths, ultimate truths, the four truths. When we understand the four truths, when we ascertain how through the four truths we enter and exit cyclic existence, then we're going to really increase our reliance on the three jewels. So the three jewels,
Found this on the web.
thanks, Siri, the three jewels where they have already attained true paths, true cessations. So from the four truths, they've already attained the last two in their own continuum, and they can show us exactly how they got there and how they abandoned afflictions to get to the result. So by understanding the two truths, we deepen our understanding with the four truths and make firm this wholehearted reliance on the three jewels to be able to liberate us. So remember, for those desirous of liberation, that's where the three jewels come in. It's not just, because I want happiness in this life. That's not even a pure refuge there at all. Or I just want to be free of the lower realms. Not pure refuge. Pure refuge only comes out when we seek liberation. So we can make firm this faith in the three jewels by seeking, being a seeker of liberation, seeing how we create our own suffering in samsara, and we can be free of it. We don't need to suffer. So may I be blessed so that the root of the liberating path is firmly established within me. So that's from the prayer that His Holiness created, praising the Nalanda masters. Very, very precious. Okay, so then suffering, true suffering. It has a cause. So we'll look later at the three sufferings, the six, the eight, maybe if we get time. Otherwise, we might just look at a portion of them as we go through, particularly next week. But this true suffering, uncontrolled birth and sickness and aging and death and all being under control of karma and afflictions and, the physical pain, mental pain, the anguish, the anxiety, the fears, all of these things that we know quite intimately. These suffering body and mind, these suffering aggregates are all true suffering. And we repeatedly, again and again, we're never sick of it, but hopefully soon, we're repeatedly again and again just take a new set of aggregates. Once again, under the control of karma and afflictions, we get impelled into another round of cyclic existence because of our ignorance that holds things to inherently exist when they do not. We hold ourselves and everything. And then because we grasp into this inherent existence and it's combined usually with our self-cherishing that disregards what others may want to put our own needs ahead of theirs, it's no wonder we suffer. And so suffering does exist, and it has a cause. And it's that grasping at inherent existence on the basis of which we engage in, dividing everything between, what's mine, me and mine, and my loved ones, my friends, my possessions, my body, my mind, my reputation, whatever that's mine and close to me, and we attach and hold on to. And whatever comes to threaten that, look out, because that's when we get this aversion and, pushback and so forth. So we end up just creating so many negative actions and suffering. So this kind of loops with itself, doesn't it? True causes creates true suffering. And so this is what we need to renounce. We need to renounce suffering. We need to set our mind on being free, attaining liberation, because there is an end, and that's the true cessations. We can be liberated. We can attain the state of nirvana, freedom from suffering, freedom from the causes of suffering. Okay, the total eradication of suffering and its causes. And we can, so there is an end to our suffering, and there is a means, there is a way, there is a method that we can adopt to bring that about. Okay, and we're going to explore that in more detail later. But you'll notice that I've drawn on blind person, which is the prison cyclic existence. I've drawn the key. The key is there. It's wrapped around our neck. Okay, it's within reach of our hand. We just have to open our eyes with wisdom and see, through the ignorance to actually unlock this prison that we have imprisoned ourselves into and actually be free. So it's kind of cool. All right, just a little bit here. So the four truths are a fourfold division as opposed to the two truths, conventional truth, ultimate truth. Now we're talking about four truths, and they're broken into two sets of cause and effect. So the way we enter into cyclic existence is on the basis of true origins. That's the cause, the binding cause that shackles us. And true suffering is that resultant bondage. And then the next set of two of the four truths is how we exit samsara. So true paths being that causal method that frees us from true cessations. And unless we actually have the right true path, that wisdom realizing emptiness, we'll never get ourselves out of this prison. Anything short of that wisdom realizing emptiness of inherent existence is not enough. We cannot break free. So if we were to realize, for instance, the lack of a permanent unitary independent self, the lack of a self-sufficient substantially existent self, as if, the self exists independent from the body and mind, as it's some sort of permanent unchanging thing, as a controller of my body, my mind, this is not going to be enough. So we're going to need to actually develop the true path, which is the main one, this wisdom realizing emptiness of inherent existence. And when we can develop that, that's going to be what causes us to break free. So these first two, cause and effect, the cause being origins, the cause, true origins, brings about true suffering, its result, cause and effect. So this is, you could say, the technical term is the side of the thoroughly afflicted class, or you could just think of it as the side of samsara. And this is the side of nirvana, exiting samsara, or sometimes it's called something like the thoroughly pure or completely pure, something like this. So completely pure class, I think it's called. Okay, so just so we know what samsara is, samsara is not a place, it's not a perfume, it's not a restaurant, although it is these things as well in our conventional world of thinking we understand samsara. But it's actually this connecting repeatedly. This is Kedrip J, so precious. One of Lama Tsongkhapa's heart disciples on this side, on his left side. Yeah, on his left side. So we've got Kedrup J on his left side. And so this is his definition, that factor of connecting repeatedly within samsara through the power of karma and afflictions. So this connecting repeatedly to a whole new set of aggregates, this is samsara. He also says that if it is samsara, it's necessarily, no exceptions, it's necessarily included within the continuum of the person. So whatever is not within our body and mind is not samsara. So the latest iPhone or, you know, device or whatever is none of this that we see external to us is samsara. Samsara is within ourselves, the body and mind. And it's this connecting repeatedly to this set of aggregates, which is an illustration of samsara, this body and mind, contaminated body and mind, under the control of karma and afflictions. This is what is samsara. So whatever we see is a true suffering, but it's not samsara. Samsara is within the continuum, right? And it's taking this rebirth again and again, getting this whole new set of aggregates, changing our body each time, and you know, taking on a new form, change of clothes, so to speak. And that's what we're trying to get rid of. Okay, so the problem with us right now, though, is we kind of like samsara, don't we? You know, we kind of, you know, we enjoy the happiness we experience, and we try to pretty it up and pretty up ourselves and try to feel good, and, you know, spend so many hours on this body, not to mention the cost. Oh my gosh, before being a nun, I can remember in those days, about 14 years ago now, spending $150 back then on my hair. Like, seriously, what was I thinking? And, you know, all the nice clothes and everything, you know, to feel good. And, you know, it's just like, it's so ridiculous in the sense that I just was so not in touch with this body and its nature. And I wasn't in touch with more than just making samsara comfortable. So, you know, not looking to get out. Giving it lip service, definitely. You know, I've studied and read Dharma for many, 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 many years, decades. But it was just more that lip service, you know, because I was comfortable. And I had the love of my dog and all of these things, you know. So samsara is not about making ourselves more comfortable and putting, you know, new paint on the walls and new kitchen handles on the cupboards and, you know, trying to make everything nice and making ourselves comfortable. So the best analogy is to try to think of, you know, the house that we're living in is the prison, the prison of cyclic existence. This, you know, we are imprisoned, and then we can, you know, focus more on getting out, of getting free of samsara to liberation. Okay, so illustrations of the samsara is any of the 12 links. Our craving in our mind, our grasping, our ignorance, this body, name and form, this body and mind, you know, uncontrolled birth. These are all illustrations of samsara. So, or you can pick off individually. There's the form aggregate, form, feeling, recognition, karmic formations, consciousness. These 5 aggregates, each of them are samsara. All right. So hopefully that's given a bit of an idea. I don't know if you remember Geshe Lama Konchog, but he talked about samsara being like a cemetery, and our mind is like the zombie, and, you know, the being who just returns from the dead and wanders round and around, you know. So it could be some nice imagery to take to meditation and to take that to heart. Okay. So if we can generate this wish, this is the purpose of looking at the 4 truths, or, you know, any of the precious Buddha Dharma, because all 84,000 teachings were for that purpose of liberation. So, and when I say liberation, you can impute liberation or great liberation, being a Mahayana, you know, enlightenment. But all of the teachings were for this purpose of being liberated. So if we can generate the wish that seeks liberation, if we can generate this thought to definitely emerge and leave behind samsara and, seek renunciation, okay, that's going to be hard because we're going to need to give up seeing the perfections of samsara as something good. And like Shanti Davis says, looking in the wrong places, run after these wrong causes only to find that, we destroy the enemy, like, the happiness that we seek as if it were an enemy. So this liberation from what? We're trying to be liberated from samsara. We're trying to be liberated from the bondage of the continuum of the aggregates, which are created by delusions and karma. So you should see there, what should jump out is the two truths related to samsara, true suffering and then true origin. You see that? So this bondage, this is true suffering, isn't it? The bondage of the continuum of the aggregates, true suffering, created under the causes of karma and delusions, true origins. So this is what we want to be liberated from. And this also is this, if we can generate this wish to be free of suffering and its causes, well, that is compassion, isn't it? And it's focused on ourselves, wanting to be free of suffering and its causes. So this mind of definite emergence or renunciation is quite like self-compassion. We talk about self-compassion all the time, but this is actually true self-compassion. Of course, we need to take care of ourselves. We need to rest when it's time to rest. We need to make sure we eat well so that, we can function. We need to get enough sleep. We need to look after our health. We need to do some sort of exercise occasionally. We need all of these basic things. We need to get into the sunshine and whatever else. We do need to look after ourselves. And that is a compassionate thing to do. But the real self-compassion isn't the massage. The real that'd be nice, wouldn't it? The real self-compassion, though, is wishing ourselves to be free of cyclic existence and its causes, wishing to be free of suffering and its causes. Then we have compassion. So to do that, we need to look at the faults of samsara. We need to understand suffering and its origin. We can't just jump to the last two truths, true paths and true cessations, and leave behind the first two truths. It doesn't happen like that. So if we're to develop this wish to abandon suffering and its causes, we need to look at those first two truths. Okay? All right. So definition, just so you understand, you don't need to write this down or anything like that. It's not like that. The definition for renunciation or determination to be free, the definite determination to be free of samsara and to gain liberation, turning away from samsara, turning towards liberation, and with which one is willing to give up true suffering and true causes. Okay? So to leave behind cyclic existence. And this is the challenge for us because it's very contradictory, seeking the samsaric pleasures, which we all do, grasp after all these pleasures, these contaminated happinesses, and seeking liberation. These two are completely contradictory. One takes us closer, embeds us further in our samsara. The other leads in the opposite direction to liberation. So that's the challenge for us. Am I ready to leave behind suffering and its causes and give up this attachment to these contaminated happinesses, these pleasures, these temporary happinesses? Can I possibly give up attachment to those, this grasping mind? That's the challenge. If we can, then we seek genuine happiness. Otherwise, we're just happy to settle in samsara. But the challenge is death is coming and we don't know when, right? This is the challenge. So right now we're enjoying the holiday. We've got a temporary visa for this precious human rebirth. But all temporary visas have a time frame, don't they? And we can't always overstay our visa. And so this holiday, that's a brief holiday from the lower realms, we may find ourselves back there. And how would that be? Without the Buddha Dharma, without a refuge, without the support. you know? It's a scary thought, but this is something we take into our meditation. We have to get in touch with this stuff. All right. So there's two ways of looking at the four truths. I'm just going to introduce this first way, but our second way of looking at the four truths is how we're going to proceed with the entire course. So the first order is in this cause and effect method, and that is in the sense of how we understand. It's usually in the context of the 12 links of dependent origination. So cause and effect, how we create suffering based on origins. So it's called the order of generation, or you could just call it, you know, the causal method, something like this. So we enter samsara based on true origins, we create true sufferings. Okay, like this. This is how we're creating our samsara. So in dependence on ignorance, we create actions, leaves an imprint in our consciousness, and then, you know, we take name and form, you know, our 5 aggregates and so forth, all the way around, craving, in dependence on feeling, craving, and grasping, potentialize an imprint to take another rebirth, aging and death, and on and on and on and on it goes, never ending. So in this way, we're kind of like caught, you know, between the jaws of the Lord of Death in this 12 links of dependent origination. But we need to get to the state of not beautifying samsara, but seeing it as this fiery building, no matter where we are, whether we're in the desire realm or whether we achieve a, you know, single point of concentration, and we take, you know, like we're in the form realm or formless realm. Doesn't matter where we are, from the lowest hells to the peak of cyclic existence, whilst we're in samsara, we are necessarily undergoing suffering. System becomes more subtle, you know. So to exit samsara, we've got to, in the causal method here, develop true paths to look at true cessations. So from an intellectual understanding of the four truths, it's important we understand the cause and effect methods here of why we suffer. Okay, why do we suffer? This is why. Okay, just briefly, Nagarjuna says, from the 3 arise the 2. So from ignorance, craving, and grasping, these 3 afflictions, from the 3 afflictions arise the 2 karmas, compositional actions and existence, sometimes called becoming. And then, you know, from this, these 7 arise. So these are the true sufferings, these 7 that are uncircled. So from the ones that are circled, from the 3 afflictions arise the 2 karmas. There's our true origins, aren't they? Afflictions, karma and afflictions. From the 3 arise the 2. From the 2 arise the 7. These are our true sufferings. And this whole circle of cyclic existence just repeats again and again. Whilst we have not abandoned ignorance, we're going to create actions, contaminated actions, and so forth. Okay? All right. I'm going to cover that later. So just a heads up that without understanding the 12 links, we're not going to be able to fully understand how we enter into cyclic existence and how we can become free. So the 12 links is something very important that we do need. It's a detailed presentation of the entire 4 truths, and that would be something worthy of doing in the future, perhaps, okay? All right. Now, I'll just stop share for a second and just see how you're traveling. So obviously we want to get to Buddhahood and all of that sort of stuff, and that's going to come about in dependence on overcoming, reversing those 12 links by stopping ignorance. We stop karmic formations. By stopping karmic formations, we stop the seed being implanted in our mental continuum and so forth. Okay, we can in this way stop aging and death. Okay, by having stopped taking uncontrolled birth in cyclic existence under karma and afflictions, yada yada yada. All right. I've probably bored you to death so far, but I see you're still breathing, so that's good. Did you have any questions so far about anything? Otherwise, I just go on. So where are you guys okay? Where are you at? How are you traveling? Deb's raised a hand. Please feel free to speak up, Deb. I'm listening. We all are. Can you unmute yourself, or should we do it for you? And Deb, also, if you could just reveal your face, if you wouldn't mind, because I like to know who I'm talking to. You know, I just feel it's more personable. Is there a link you can share about the 12? No, Cam, sorry, no problem. Is there a link you can share? Well, maybe you can get me to do a course on the 12 links in the future, because I did one here recently at Chenrezig Institute. So if there's interest in that, a link about the 12. If you're just wanting a link as to basic understanding, you could just even search Geshe Google, you know, Google. Dr. Google, Geshe Google. So Google's a wealth of information that's reliable. Generally, if you pick your good sources, you can certainly Google FPMT or Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive. There'll be plenty there, and that may give you what you need. Otherwise, it does require again and again revisiting. I can remember when I did this course at CI here, it was so random because I was creating a presentation for my own understanding of the 12 links, because I felt it was always a topic that was always kind of, I don't know, it doesn't matter if I had studied it like not many times, but 5 times or something. I still felt it was something that I didn't really fully grasp. So I started creating this presentation, and I'm in the middle of creating this presentation, and then a request came through, can you do the 12 links? And I was like, huh. So that was why I was doing it. But by going through and doing your own research and creating your own understanding as if you were teaching it to someone else, it was never my intention to teach it, but it was just for my own benefit to try to understand it. And that's often how, when we're learning to create something as if we were to deliver it, not in actuality, is often how we learn the most. Lorna, you've got a question. Thank you.
Actually, I just wanted to share that on Thubten Children's website. She has a lot of her teachings there, and she has a really excellent series on the 12 links.
And that book as well.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, it's from like 1992, but who cares?
Yeah, it's still the same. This is from 2,600 years ago.
Yeah.
So 1992 is current.
But I've listened to it many times, and I've learned a lot from it. She does a really excellent job.
Yeah, totally. And those books, Samsara and Nirvana, are marvelous as well. And I believe currently there's recordings from that book happening even, right now.
On the Sravasti Abbey website. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
Esatto. Grazie. Okay. So Deb says thanks. All right. Shall we proceed then, or would anyone like to share anything else? Okay. So we've just got only half an hour left. So I've got to remember that this is a shorter class than the DV one tomorrow. Okay. All right. So the order we're going to look at, before I said there was 2 orders, okay? Cause and effect. True origins bring about true suffering. True paths bring about true cessations. But that's not the order that we actually need to get in touch with and realize the 4 truths. So they are presented in a different order now, as if it was like for the yogi, us as the yogi who can take this stuff in our meditation and reflection and try to actually realize the 4 truths. So they're in a different order. They're in the reverse order now. So the first thing we need to reflect on is true sufferings. And true suffering is to be known. When we can come to understand these true sufferings, then naturally the wish is going to arise that we want to be free of suffering. Okay, so we're going to put in some effort. Okay, we're going to then look at, well, why am I suffering? I'm in touch with why I'm suffering. I don't like it. And it's got various levels, some very obvious to me, suffering of pain, But then, the contaminated happiness, not so obvious, is it? Because we mistake it as being some sort of enduring happiness, which it's not. And then the pervasive suffering of conditionality, these aggregates, for instance, under the control of karma and afflictions, like a ticking time bomb, ready to just make manifest suffering appear, even just with changing small conditions. And it can even bring about a death in a moment, heart attacks and whatever else. So having these suffering aggregates, this pervasive suffering of conditionality, is like that ticking time bomb ready to explode in either the manifest suffering of suffering, or the suffering of change. So then the next order is under true cessations. So help, I'm suffering. Okay, why do I suffer? Can I be free of suffering? True cessations. Can I be free? Freedom. If so, how? Let me know how. So true sufferings, we want to become free of. True origins, we want to abandon them. These true cessations, we want to actualize that state of nirvana or freedom from, any suffering and its causes. So tell me the means, the methods, the way I can develop these true paths in my mental continuum. True paths being, consciousnesses predominantly, except for one which is vows, but otherwise consciousnesses, and the main one being that wisdom realizing emptiness of inherent existence from the Prasangika point of view, right? So that wisdom realizing emptiness. But from that path to seeing, even other, like our bodhicitta and all of these other things are going to be true paths as well. All right. So Precious Maitreya talked about how we have to understand suffering, abandon origins, manifest cessations, meditate on the path. Okay? So we've got to diagnose the illness, find out its cause, and then look at if health can be achieved, and if so, rely on the medicine. And you know what it's like when you go to the doctors yourself. So if you're in, you don't ever go to the doctor just for a chat, not at $150 or whatever it costs for you guys and ask for an appointment. And when you no longer want this suffering, when you're fed up with it, then you'll seek out a doctor. And you may even ask, one of the first questions I ask is, like, why is this happening? How did this happen? I'm basically saying, what's the cause of my suffering? Because if I know it has a cause, then I know it can be stopped. If I know the cause, not only can it be stopped, but it can be stopped forever. I can become immune from ever getting it again if I don't allow the conditions for that cause to actually ripen. So, when we go to the doctor and we say, well, how did I get this? Can I actually cure this? Can I attain a true cessation, right? And as far as the analogy goes, can I be free of this? And the doctor says, no, of course. The doctor says, sure. You can be free, but it's going to require this. You have to go and get this medicine, go and get these bloods, because we might need to check this, and this, and there's all these things that we've got to do. But if we do them, if we internalize the treatment plan, we can be cured. Okay? So the analogy is irreversible. When we are in suffering, when suffering arises for us, look at, does it have a cause, and so forth. So let's have a look at it a little bit more detail. So here's from Maitreya. Illness is to be diagnosed, the cause is to be abandoned, health is to be achieved, the medicine is to be relied on. relating that to the four truths. Likewise, suffering and its causes, cessation and path are to be diagnosed, abandoned, reached, and relied on. So then when we look at it, we look at the illness and we find out our true suffering, right? Does it have a cause? If it doesn't have a cause, if it's causeless, then there's just going to be things randomly appearing, randomly occurring. There's nothing we can do if something is random. Okay? If things just happen and pop up and there's just without causes, then there's no explanation for why it is so. There's nothing we can do about it. Our samsara just happens. So is there a cause or is it without cause? Well, clearly it's not without cause. Things do work in a cause and effect way. Okay, impermanent phenomena arise in dependence on causes and conditions. So then to exhaust all possibilities, because this we're taking into meditation. This is a good meditation to do today. It's too late for you tonight, but tomorrow or something like this to revisit this. So it has a cause. Is that cause permanent, unaffected by causes and conditions, unchanging? Okay. Or is it impermanent? Does it change? By adjusting certain conditions, can that be influenced? If it's impermanent, it's changing moment by moment. That means in each moment, it can be affected. Right? So, so we need to analyze and understand true suffering. Does it have a cause or is it causeless? If it has a cause, is it permanent or impermanent? We can see that at times our suffering is more intense. Other times it lessens. With other conditions brought into play, it can stop, can finish. So it's not a permanent cause because it is changeable. It shows increase and decrease, and it's occasional even when we meet with certain conditions is when the suffering manifests. All right, so then when we look at the true origins, this cause, so the cause is twofold: karma and delusions. This is what we need to abandon. The root of why we suffer in cyclic existence is, some call it like the view of the transitory collection, which just means it observes the conventionally existent I and holds it to inherently exist. Okay? So if that's familiar to you, no problem. Otherwise, just think of it as grasping an inherent existence. It's this innate self-grasping. That's the root of cyclic existence. Now, that's what we need to target. If we can, if we can uproot our cyclic existence, then we uproot everything that follows that is caused by innate self-grasping. We uproot what's caused by innate self-grasping. It would be things like our afflictions, negative karma, suffering in cyclic existence. We uproot all of it if we can generate the means, the true path to destroy that cause, innate self-grasping. So when we looked at, is my suffering, true suffering caused? Yes. Is it an impermanent cause? Yes. Well, what's the cause? Innate self-grasping. Then we ask ourselves, well, can I abandon innate self-grasping? Can this illness, this true suffering, be overcome? Can health be achieved? And we're going to see through our study, reflection, and meditation that we are able to abandon this innate self-grasping and be free. We can have freedom from the illness. We can stop our suffering. Because it is caused, and it's an impermanent cause, we can stop the cause, which is going to stop its results, and we can be free. I mean, that's hugely liberating, hugely. And so then this, how do we do that? This wisdom realizing emptiness, that's the main true path. That's the main method, combined with our bodhicitta, right? Because we don't want to leave any sentient beings behind. We want to bring them with us. We are indebted to them for everything, including this body, right? Every realization we achieve is only through the kindness of sentient beings. Sustaining this body with clothing, food, anything and everything is only due to the kindness of others. So this wisdom realizing emptiness, supported with our bodhicitta, it's not bodhicitta that harms the self-grasping, though. Okay? It's the wisdom realizing emptiness. It's only the wisdom realizing emptiness. Bodhicitta alone is not enough. Compassion is not enough. Okay? None of the other realizations is enough. It's this direct antidote, the wisdom realizing emptiness, that directly opposes ignorance, opposes direct ignorance. Wisdom can overpower entirely ignorance. It can directly harm because it is a valid mind. It is a valid cognition. It is not a wrong consciousness like ignorance. This wisdom realizing emptiness is supported on the grounds of reasoning and logic. So it has a very it all true mind sees reality exactly as it is, as opposed to ignorance, which is a false mind. It perceives. All right. So what we were seeing, in our meditation and our reflection was the lack of inherent existence. Did you hear me? I think you did explain where the wisdom realizing emptiness is supported on reasons and logic. It's grounded in reason and logic. It's a true mind. It harms the ignorance. I think you heard all of that, right? Before we cut out? Not so. Oh dear. Well, that was the best bit too. I'm sorry we're having such a poor connection. I don't know why that is. Anyway, it might be at the Santa Fe level even. Maybe the cold weather. So let's go back to that. Wisdom realizing emptiness. This is our true path, our main true path. It's directly opposing ignorance grasping at a self. Ignorance, wrong consciousness, grasping at things to inherently exist. Wisdom, realizing emptiness, a valid mind, a valid cognition, based in reasons and logic as its very foundation, based in reality. It's realizing the lack, the exact opposite. One's ignorance, grasping inherent existence. The wisdom realizes the lack of inherent existence. These two directly oppose. That's why it's only through developing the wisdom realizing emptiness can we overcome the root of cyclic existence, the ignorance grasping an inherent existence. No other mind, like love and compassion, the four immeasurables, bodhicitta, no other mind can overpower the root of cyclic existence. And this is why we need the wisdom realizing emptiness to achieve our goal, whether it be liberation or enlightenment. So it's a true mind. It sees reality exactly as it is, as lacking inherent existence. What appears is the lack of inherent existence, this emptiness of how things exist. Okay, the mode of abidance of all phenomena, how it exists as it is, empty of inherent existence. So this wisdom realizing emptiness is the method to overcome cyclic existence, to achieve the state of health. Wonderfully powerful stuff. If we can take it into our reflection and maybe do this meditation over the next couple of days and try to actually develop conviction that we're not wasting our time in samsara anymore, that we can actually turn away from samsara towards creating liberation. So therefore, health, so identify true suffering. Is it caused or causeless? It's caused. So is it a permanent cause or impermanent? It's impermanent. It changes moment to moment. So here's an analogy, all right? This is a classic one from the text, but I still think it's worthwhile, particularly for you guys in America where it's so cold. Okay, so goosebumps, yeah? Okay, goosebumps are a result of being cold. I mean, also cold turkey and all of these things, but I assume no one's detoxing from drugs right now. So goosebumps all over you, right? Oh, it's so cold. There's a suffering result. What's the cause of my goosebumps? Being cold. I don't have them and I'm, 29, 30 degrees. So the cause is being cold. The result is goosebumps. So are my goosebumps with the cause? Yes. What is that cause? It's impermanent. It's being cold. It doesn't happen all the time. It's occasional. Sometimes it's more intense. Sometimes it's less intense. So therefore, what is the cause? It is being cold. Can my goosebumps be overcome? Yes. What do I need to do? Get a nice cozy fire going. Have a nice mug of hot chocolate with some marshmallows and everything. Ooh, a couple of sips, ooh, by the warm fire. Suddenly, no goosebumps, right? We've overcome the cause, being cold. Therefore, it cannot give rise to the goosebumps. We overcome with the wisdom realizing emptiness, our warm fireplace. Okay, bodhicitta can be the mug of hot chocolate because we want the two coming together. We can get nice and warm and overcome the cause of our being, with goosebumps or something, or the cause of our suffering. We can overcome our true origins, our innate grasping at self-existence, to inherently exist, truly exist, independently exist, and then we can overcome our samsara. Because true origins cause our samsara, don't they? So we can overcome the suffering of goosebumps by stopping its cause, being cold. How? By getting near the fireplace, keeping warm, and so forth. Okay, so you can even think of examples, related to, being hungry or thirsty or anything like this, to really drive home this causative approach. All right, so that's in essence, I think, the main things I wanted to cover today. I think, yeah, next week we can go into true sufferings and look at that in greater detail. Now, what we should definitely do, we've got 5 minutes, so we should definitely have a look to see if there is any questions. And then what we should also do is some dedication prayers. Okay, so where are we at? Any questions in the last couple of minutes? Everyone's okay? All right, so let's let me see. I'm going to have to find the prayers for dedications. Oh yeah, here we go. Refuge dedications. All right. Play in window. Okay, share screen portion. Okay. Oops. So I've just got three prayers there. Hang on. Okay. Hopefully you can see that. Let's change slides. Okay, so wonderful. We've had some great interruptions. It's been our karma to experience some technological issues today, but that's okay. We've responded joyfully, enduring with a happy mind, some true suffering. So we can rejoice that we conducted ourselves well in the state of virtue, despite some challenges. And we can dedicate all the merit discussing the precious Buddha Dharma for the welfare of every single sentient being, that it may become the exact cause, the complete cause to liberate them from all suffering and bring them to enlightenment. And to do that, we need to attain enlightenment. So we can recite together if you like. Due to this merit, may I soon attain the enlightened state of a Guru Buddha, that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. And then His Holiness and Lamas of Rinpoche, long life prayers. Incomparably kind and supreme Tenzin Gyatso, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world. May you have a long life and all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. You who uphold the subdual's moral way, who serve as a bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplishes magnificent prayers honoring the three sublime ones, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. Okay. Thanks, everyone. So I hope everything was okay and it was at the right level. It didn't seem too simplified, not too complex or anything. Great.
That's good.
Good. So thank you.
Thank you so much.